So, this past Friday, actually this past Thursday, we saw the NBC debut and long-awaited return of two classic Christmas specials. On Thursday, we saw the debut for the first time on NBC of Frosty the Snowman. Well, on Friday, the following night, we saw a special extended return to NBC after 50 plus years of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Now, a lot of people, when they saw Frosty, they're like, well, it's still the same Frosty. Nothing's really cut out that much. Well, there might be like a few moments here, here and there, I should say, that were cut out during the CBS broadcast, but you can definitely tell that there was a change in the NBC broadcast. Like, there basically were some moments restored. Not much. Not as significant as what you got with Rudolph. I mean, Rudolph basically... right here, Rudolph, he had several moments cut out, if you will. He had several moments. When you have Rudolph and Hermie meet up, you have, a couple of Misfits songs, that was cut out and everything. You had the ending of the special, cut out and stuff. Like when Rudolph's taken off and Blitzen's, Donner, I should say, is there with the family, obviously letting Rudolph take his place and somebody new take his place or whatever. And then you have, Yukon Cornelius discovering a peppermint mine and stuff. So there was a bunch of things that were cut out of the CBS broadcast. Now, if you watch the Freeform, and yes, they did put it on Freeform for a while, and they still have it on there on occasions, especially this year, Freeform would give you the unedited version. That's why I think Universal licensed it out to the Disney-owned Freeform channel, because they knew that, hey, through cable, they could have a little bit more leeway to present it as it, normally should be. Now, was there maybe a few things still cut out of the Freeform version? Just a bit, not much. Basically, with the Freeform version, you got, there what you got on Friday night. But why was it promoted as such a big deal, though, if you already have that version either digitally or physically, or even you've seen that version on places like Freeform? Why was it such a big deal? Well, because basically the reason it was a big deal is it's been 60 years. 60 years since it originally debuted on that same date, February 6th, 1964. It's been 64 years since its original debut, and most importantly, it's been 60 years since it first was broadcast on the network it returned to this year, that being NBC. NBC, owned by Universal, owns the rights to classic media, decided the time was right to bring it home, mainly because I think of the fact that when they look at how maybe popular the sales are digitally and physically for the Blu-ray, 4K, VHS, formats and versions of the special itself in its original form. Trying to find the right words to say here. When they saw that, like I said, the sales of the digital, physical, and all that, when they saw how successful those were being and everything, and then they probably saw the viewership numbers going up, on places like Freeform and such, and even YouTube, where people would upload the original version that you would get on, like I said, the other medias outside of CBS. My opinion is NBC Universal's like, hey, people like the original, let's get the special back to our network, to a network we own, which was NBC, and basically show it as it's originally meant to be seen. Because the question I'm sure a lot of people always have, or always had, I should say, is why did CBS edit it down? Well, I think it's mainly because CBS wanted to focus more on its programming that originated from its place and nothing else. So if you're going to have Christmas specials, like let's say Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you're going to want to edit it down to make room for your shows. Because if you don't have full ownership of said special and stuff, then you're not going to want to have nothing to do with it. The same goes with ABC, which is owned by Disney, ironically. ABC, who who's owned by Disney, just like Disney owns Freeform, they still have the license to run Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which is another iconic special. The only issue is just like with CBS's the broadcast of Rudolph when they had it, they edited the special down itself, which kind of tells me that in the next few years, I've got a feeling NBC is going to acquire, the broadcasting license for Santa Claus is Coming to Town, so you'll have all three iconic, very soon, all three iconic Rankin Bass specials on NBC and broadcast as they're originally meant to be broadcast. But the saving grace, though, for Santa Claus is Coming to Town is on Freeform, you get to see it as it's originally meant to be seen, just like on here. That's why when, Universal, puts things like this together, the main three that they pack together or they give peripheral treatment to is Rudolph, Frosty, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Those are the ones they go with. Now, yeah, they've come out with other ones as well, where they have all the Rankin Bass Christmas specials comprised together along with those three, and I actually own that as well. But the point I'm getting at is the ones that always get peripheral treatment are the ones that get seen not just through cable, but through the national broadcast, but also through national over-the-air broadcasting. When it comes to Rudolph, again, the reason it was such a big deal and celebrated for 60 years and everything was because not only was it coming home to the broadcast in which it originally started on, which, by the way, I got to give credit to NBC. I had a feeling they were going to do this too. They used the old, I guess you could say, NBC Peacock logo from back in the 60s, before they went on with the presentation. So I got to give them credit there. The only thing I think I would have changed is not having the Universal logo at the end, or at the beginning, I should say. I think that's the one thing I probably would have changed, is not have the Universal logo at the beginning, because it's like, originally it was not a Universal presentation. It was just its own thing. So I would have just kept the NBC nostalgic 60s logo at the beginning and then just gone into the special instead of go the Universal route. But again, I understand why they would do something like that, because they do own the rights to the classic media library. So basically it is a Universal property, and so I get why they would do it and go with that as a part of the presentation, if you will. But again, what people have to understand is the reason it was such a big deal, despite whether or not they feel, oh, it's just the same special, is because it has things added in. It has things added in. It has the ending scene, that was taken out, added in, the original ending scene, and there were a couple of Misfits song added in as well. And the way they also went to commercial and stuff kind of fit a little bit better off than I think what CBS would do. That's the other reason. They wanted to present it as it was originally presented 60 years ago. Now they're going to be putting it back on Thursday so that anybody that missed it can see it again. The same with Frosty. Frosty's coming out this week as well as I think in the next week and basically on the day of Christmas. So you're going to get to see Frosty at least a couple more times, mostly on Christmas morning as well. So I think that's going to be a tradition that NBC will do. They'll try to show the special, or at least one of the specials, if not both, more than just once or twice. Rudolph, I could see them doing maybe 2 times because Freeform has it, and that's fine. But I could probably see them adding Rudolph to Christmas morning as well. But Frosty, that's already been acknowledged as being Christmas morning bound as an encore presentation in the next few weeks, along with future encore presentations this upcoming week, next week, and so on. But yeah, for anybody that was wondering why it was so important and why NBC made such a big deal out of it, is mainly because of the fact that it's been 60 years since basically the original, which is on here. That's the one thing about physical and digital media. You can get the originals as they were meant to be seen. The reason they made it such a big deal is because for basically 50 years, a little over 50 years, since 1972, as far as I know, the original had not been seen in its entirety. Now, I might have to correct. Now, I might might have to throw out a correction there, because I think for a bit CBS did have the original broadcast for a time. I don't know when they edited it, to save space and everything, but I do recall, even as a kid growing up in the 80s and early 90s, but mostly the 80s, they had basically Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as originally first seen. Now, I don't know who decided to come in at CBS and say, we're not doing that anymore, we're going to edit it down. I don't know who made that decision, but, thankfully Universal's like, when they acquired the license, or the other people before them acquired the license and distributing the license, that is, they decided, no, we're not going to do that, we're going to put it as is. And then Universal's like, well, look, you guys are doing, you previous owners or licensees and distributors, you're doing a good job in, trying to present it as it should have been, but you're still keeping some things out, so we're going to take over and we're going to make it as it should be. And that's what basically we've gotten here. But yeah, in closing, people have to understand that the reason this was hyped up as such a big deal is because literally for the first time in over 50 years, 60 years, 50 years, but literally for the first time since it debuted 60 years ago, it was, it was being aired, it was being aired on the same date and night it debuted 60 years ago. And it's also a big deal because it was back on the same channel and network it debuted on 60 years ago, 50 years later, and being showcased as originally was meant to be. But that's just my thoughts on it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment if you like. What did you think of the presentation? And until then, I am out.